These are my 6 tips to begin running for somebody start from scratch or somebody that's maybe just not used to running a lot. So the first thing I would say, the first tip I would give is to run slow. So I would recommend to base your runs on time, not pace, and not distance. The way to run slow at an effort that you should be able to sustain for a set amount of time is to run at a conversational pace. So this means that you can speak in full sentences. If you're not with somebody, you don't literally need to test this out, but you could just speak out loud if you want, if you're on your own, to test whether or not you're running at a conversational pace. But you should be able to speak in full sentences and not be dying to breathe afterwards. Basically, if you can only say 2 or 3 words, just bring your pace back a little bit. When I say to run to a set time, not pace or not distance, I'd recommend to begin with 30 minutes. A lot of people might think they can't run for 30 minutes consecutively, but the thing is, you're not running. You're if you go at a flat out pace, you're unlikely to be able to run for 30 minutes straight. If you slow it down to the point where you can speak in full sentences, then your body should be able to last for 30 minutes. And over time, you'll find that you can actually run for longer than this. For me, apps like Couch to 5K, I wouldn't particularly recommend them. I think they put a bit of a psychological focus on making you think that you need to walk during periods of your run. In reality, what you should be doing is a constant jog. Only really walk or stop if you need to. But again, it's a psychological thing. So if you put it in your head, I can run for 30 minutes, you definitely can. And that's how I would go about it rather than using a Couch to 5K. I think it just isn't the most efficient way by including walks unless you desperately need them. So the reason that we run slow is it does a lot of things. It builds your overall fitness more efficiently than running flat out. It'll build up the small muscles in your legs, your joints, ligaments, tendons will all learn to adapt to running. It'll allow them to slowly build up the strength to actually deal with the impact of running, where you're constantly hitting the ground at a greater force than what you're used to. So running slowly allows the body to take less impact than running fast and therefore be able to build the strength up. You can also use gym work to help build these areas up. So I've got my conditioning video on that on my channel. It also doesn't really build fatigue in the body. Your first couple of runs, you might feel sore legs or that you're tired afterwards, but after a couple of weeks, you should find that this kind of goes away because if you're actually learning to run at an easy pace. Another thing it does is develop what's called mitochondria, which are these cells in your body which actually use oxygen and convert it into energy. So they're quite important for running, and slow, efficient running is the best way to actually develop these cells and improve your body's ability to convert oxygen into energy. So slow running is the best way to do that. So my second tip is that I'm talking about running based on time. So when we're looking to increase the amount that you're doing, instead of increasing the time, I would actually just add extra days. So if we begin with 1 day or 2 days, we want to increase that up to 3 days a week for 30 minutes. Once you feel you can do that, then we can maybe look to add an extra bit of time. So for example, we'll switch up to 45 minutes or maybe an hour per run, something that you'll build up to. And again, because you're running slow, your body will be able to do this. And the actual only limited factor to this is maybe finding the actual time to run. So for me, I run after work. I find it's the best time and most consistent time for me. But everyone is their own. Some people prefer to run in the morning, maybe on your lunch break if you're working at home. So whatever works for each individual person. Eventually, if we do want to add in some fast paces, what we would do is either add in a fourth day, or on that third day, I would recommend then adding your speed day, where you can do things like intervals, threshold workouts, which again are featured in my training videos for the weeks. So for the moment, we will want up to 3 days running easy per week. My third tip is becoming consistent with your running. It's the most important factor in my opinion. If you're running inconsistently, once a week, every 2 weeks, you're not really going to get that consistency, and you're never really going to progress from where you're at. So if you're constantly stopping and starting running every few weeks, yeah, it's just not going to be consistent, and you're not going to actually continually develop your body. Everything's just going to go back to the place where you left it when you come back to it. So the most important thing is be consistent. One of the best ways to improve your consistency is to kind of have set days that you're likely to be able to run, for example, after work. So you might be able to run usually on a Monday, so then you could also run on a Wednesday or Thursday, and then at the weekend it might be easier to find a bit of time when you're actually going to 3 days a week. The most important thing though is I'd say leave a day at least in between your runs if you're doing multiple per week, until you've built up to the point where you're doing 5 or 6 and you're going to need to run back to back days at some point. But leave that day's rest just for your body to recover, and that's how it gains the benefits by actually resting. So consistent days is something that can just be a little tip that can help you to actually be able to get out regularly and continually improve. My fourth tip would be you don't need to go and spend a fortune on equipment. The main thing you need to run is a good pair of shoes. Other than that, you can survive. You don't need anything else. In terms of the shoes, what I would recommend is make sure you get proper running shoes. Runners sometimes are marketed as something that you can run in, but I wouldn't particularly use just a generic pair of runners to run. It's not going to provide the same cushioning as an actual pair of running shoes. They're not purpose built. So they might just increase your chance of getting injuries and getting like shin splints, little things like that, which is going to stop you from running. And that's not what we want. Again, we want consistency. So good pair of running shoes, and you don't need to spend a fortune on these. A pair I'd recommend is Asics Nova Blast. I wouldn't even recommend the latest model. I would just get an older model on sale. Pretty much the same technology in them all. Very little leaps in technology in between pairs, and yeah, you can usually get them on sale. So that's what I do for all my running shoes. I very rarely buy a brand new pair, as in the latest model. So that's how I would recommend it. So you don't need to spend a fortune on that. In terms of additional equipment, a watch is good if you already have one, but it's not something that you desperately need to be able to run. You can use your phone to track your time or your distance if you are doing that, but I recommend time. And your phone is a little bit less accurate in terms of GPS, but again, if we're doing time on feet, the GPS isn't as important, and you can still check all your generic stats through your phone. Apps like Strava, Map My Run, and there's probably plenty of others that you can use. Other than that, earphones, things like that, you can just use any pair, or you can buy purpose-built running ones. But again, you don't need to invest in a ton of equipment if you're just starting off. Just do or just get what you need to get out and run, basically. So tip number 5 is going to be to relax when you're running. You don't want to be tensed up. It's going to make your body less efficient and probably work your heart a bit harder because you're tense, you're not comfortable. So what you want to do is focus on your breathing. So you want to breathe. You can either breathe through your nose or through your mouth. Nose is a good one because it will kind of make sure you're running at the right pace if you're able to breathe through your nose. Breathe down through your stomach, so your stomach should expand, and then we just breathe back out again. Try to relax your shoulders. And what I would do is I listen to podcasts or audiobooks, something to sort of take your mind off it a little bit. And, if you're not focused on what your body is doing, it's just going to naturally relax. So for me, podcasts or audiobooks are good for that. I also recommend sticking to your natural running form. If you try to Google an elite marathoner's running form and copy it, you're going to be tense. You're going to be constantly thinking about the shape of your body, and it's also not the most efficient way for your own body to run. Your body will find the most efficient running form for itself as you kind of get more used to running over time. So by looking up someone else's form, your body's not going to be finding that efficiency, and yeah, it's just not going to be as useful for you as it would be for that marathoner. You've got different bodies, different styles, postures, everything. So don't worry about how anyone else runs. So my sixth tip kind of follows on from that. So I would say don't compare yourself to other people in terms of their times, what runs they're doing, how fast they're doing it, anything like that. So it's not really beneficial to compare yourself to other people in that way. The only person, it is a cliche, but the only person to compare yourself to is yourself. That's how you can judge whether you're making improvements or not. So I wouldn't compare myself to others, even things like what equipment they're using, or do they have nicer running shoes than me, or they're using the Nike Alpha Fly. Should I be using this really expensive pair of shoes? There's no point comparing to anyone else. The most important thing is whether you personally are improving. It's not really about anyone else. So apps like Strava are good, but sometimes I think people do compare themselves to other people too much a bit, and yeah, we're all different. So, for example, when I started running, I've been playing football consistently for years, so I had already a base level of fitness that I could just go straight into running with. A lot of people don't have that. They're just starting exercising from scratch, so they're not going to have that same maybe ability or speed that I might have had to begin with. And things like that can only be built up over time. It's not something that, you should be thinking that other person was able to begin running like this straight away and I can't. So, I'm no good at running. That's not really relevant to you. So there's probably is other little bits of advice I could give or, expansions on what I've just said, but I didn't want to be rambling on for too long in terms of these little things. If people have further questions on anything I've mentioned or just anything in general, they can message me or comment, whatever, and I'll try to help. But these are the main tips that I would give for somebody that's just starting to run. And again, I think the most important part of this is to run slow and easy at a pace that's not going to fatigue your body or build up overuse injuries such as shin splints or stress fractures, and also to become consistent with it. If you're not consistent with it, you're going to always struggle and you're going to find yourself not wanting to run because it's always difficult and it's just not beneficial. So the most important thing is try to set a schedule and become consistent with it. So thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed and hope this was helpful as well.